So Read and Write for Google basically can work on a Chromebook, a PC, or a Mac. And it has right now 3 different toolbars. The first toolbar will appear in Google Docs. The second toolbar you can activate on web pages through the Chrome web browser. And the third one, you can access documents, specifically PDFs, when you share them and open them through Google Drive. And I don't know if anybody has any legacy Kurzweil or Kezi files. Does anybody have any of those throughout the district that you're aware of, Scott?
Yes, a high school with thousands of Kezi files.
Really? Good news is all they have to do is take that Kezi file, put it into Google Drive, and when they open it up, we've got a converter built in. When you open up that Kezi file, you can use our tools right away to read from it, annotate it, do all that without having to do any extra conversion. So those files, those legacy files, you own them. You can use them and just drop them into Google. And I'll show you how that works as well.
Now, sometimes there have been pronunciation changes made within Kurzweil. Do you think those changes will stay?
I don't know. My gut tells me no, because those would be like alt text, but I'm not sure if we're actually accessing the alt text. What I do know is that we are building in our PDF viewer. Eventually we will have the alt text capability so that you can alter what, if you have an image there, you can make you click on the image, it'll say that. Is that what you're referring to, as some of like the images or some of the words themselves are changed?
Yeah, some of the images, sometimes page numbers are read out loud, and that can be irritating. Sometimes a word like Atticus from To Kill a Mockingbird gets pronounced Atticus, and so every single Atticus is changed from Atticus to Atticus.
I don't think we have that built in right now. We'll have to see. In fact, if you can find some Atticus examples in Kezi files and open them up and test it with Read and Write for Google, it would be interesting for us to find that out.
Right.
Good. So the first of the 3 toolbars here, when I have a Google Doc opened up, you'll see that there's this tab here that hangs down. And when I click on the tab, that is where Read and Write for Google's tools inside of Google Docs reside. And here you can see similar type icons to the one I was showing you, that blue toolbar from Read and Write Gold, our desktop version here. Here now they are located in Google. And this list is going to grow, or these icons are going to grow over time as we add more of them to it, to the program. But the ones that are available right now, first of all, most importantly, the text-to-speech. So if I click on this play button.
History of Ireland. History of Ireland. The Irish are mainly of Celtic origin. The Celts arrived in the 4th.
And I'm going to pause it right there. First of all, Scott, are you able to hear that on your end okay?
Yeah, it's a little quiet.
Okay. I'm not sure if I can do much about that, but you kind of get the gist that it's reading as it's highlighting there?
Yes.
That dual highlighting there, that is what the research shows. It's very important to have that. You have the bimodal nature of hearing the word read with the text-to-speech, as well as seeing the word as it's being read highlighted in blue. So it's kind of like following the bouncing ball. Unfortunately, students who have to have tests read aloud, or who require that, or who benefit from it, more often than not, teachers are not standing there putting their fingers underneath the words that they're reading. So the students really are being read to, but they have no idea which word is being read at the time, most of the time. So this allows the students to track and decode as it's being read to them, and that's what really helps with that comprehension. Now, in terms of the voices, if you look down here, you see this wheel for settings. When you click on settings, you have a number of voices that students can choose from, so they can listen to some of these and choose the ones that are most appropriate for them. We have some French Canadian as well as Parisian French voices in there as well. So if you have some students who speak French or would prefer to hear that, or there's French immersion, that would be a good option for them as well as some Spanish voices, some other European type voices. So there are a lot that students can choose from. You can also choose the speed, and then if you wanted to continuously read through a document, as you saw mine, it was just going to go through the entire Google Doc there. And then we have a translator. I have it on Spanish, but I can change that to French now as well. And over time, you're going to see these settings are going to grow, where you'll have more flexibility in the program. Probably a year or so from now, we're going to see it where students can actually take away some tools they don't need or add some tools that they prefer, so they can customize the toolbar for their account based upon their needs. So this is going to grow over time as well, the options. So some of the other tools to point out here inside of Read and Write for Google in a Google Doc are the comprehension tools. If I don't know what the word history is, I have a couple different dictionary tools that can help me. The first one here is a talking dictionary. So when I click on it, it brings up this dictionary tool and gives me a definition for the word I have highlighted. In this case, it's history. So when I click on any of these definitions, it's going to read it aloud with the dual highlighting as well.
Anything that happened in the past, we can trace my family's history.
So right inside of my document, I have this dictionary comprehension support, which is nice. A second way that I can have words defined is a picture dictionary. And so the picture dictionary, it's off to the side here, basically is going to give me some visuals of the word that I have highlighted. So as I go through my document and I look at other words, you're going to see it's going to update not only the talking dictionary, but my picture dictionary as well. Now these symbols that we're using are from a company called Widgets, and Widgets creates these symbols for students who are lower cognitive levels, so it's easier for them to kind of pick this up. But because they've made it so simple, these images, what we've found is we've had enormous feedback from the ELL communities, where typically students or schools would bring in Read and Write Gold or Read and Write for Google for students maybe that struggle, but then they find that the ESL and ELL students benefit greatly from this because it doesn't matter if they speak Somalian or Spanish or what it is. They have a visual here that basically speaks from a visual representation standpoint, and you don't have to worry about translating necessarily. So this has been a huge benefit for students who are not speaking English natively. So those are the two comprehension tools. Another way, I mentioned translation. If there is a word that I don't know, I can click on this translator, and you saw how I switched it in my settings from Spanish to French. When I click on this now, it's going to give me the French translation, and when I click on the word, you're going to hear it with a French accent read that word aloud.
Histoire. Passé.
So you have the dictionary, the talking dictionary, the picture dictionary, and the translator tool here as well to help students who may not be speaking English natively. Any questions from the group so far on this Google Doc toolbar?
Question. Is there going to be more voices attached? Or will there be more voices? Did you hear that, Paul?
No, I didn't, Scott.
Yeah, there's going to be different voices over time, like Chinese, Filipino. We got a lot of Philippines and a lot of things.
Yes, over time we will, and the way I know this is really for a lot of these questions of will you be adding this or that, we look to our desktop program, which as I mentioned is an expansive one. It has many menus in it, but a lot of what people are requesting, and we kind of know what people are going to be requesting because we've been doing this for 15 years on the desktop, and we've gone through the evolution of that desktop program, and so our desktop has many more voices available than what's here. The other thing is, because we're a Google partner, they recently have told us, where they want us to concentrate, and that's on their bigger markets. Bigger markets right now being United States, Canada, Brazil, and then some Asian countries. So Chinese is going to be something we're going to be adding soon to this. So we're developing this not just for, English primarily speaking languages in schools, but we're going to be developing this more out as a tool for different countries as well. Including China. So that's going to be coming definitely down the road.
What I really like is on Google, I really like the Google Translate on the search engine, especially for like Chinese, like these putting those characters and it does a pretty good job of translating it back into English. So that'd be awesome, like especially for these international students, whether they're coming from China or more so from South Korea as well, like Korean. But the Filipinos, we've had a lot of that over the years at our school. So.
In fact, as you're saying that, I'm thinking I just did a hangout yesterday with our CEO or our CTO, Martin. He's our developer. Read and Write came out of his mind 18 years ago, and he's actually in Kuala Lumpur right now. So there's development going on all over the place, and he's with the people right now. So this is going to be taken off in a lot of different ways as time moves on.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Question for you, Paul. Sometimes I notice that there's a bit of lag that goes on as the word is being highlighted. Either the speech is too fast or it's not catching up to the speaker. And I'm just wondering what that is. Is that a Wi-Fi issue? Is that a...
More than likely it is a Wi-Fi issue. But the voices are not stored locally, obviously, because we're doing everything web-based. And to bring the voices over would be humongous files that you can't really put in a Chromebook. You don't want to put locally. So it can be more than likely a bandwidth issue, just because it is a voice file coming over. I'd be interested, if you use the same document, if you were at home, Scott, and use it kind of to see if that made any difference, or somewhere else besides in a school, or at the end of the day when there's not as much usage there and there's more bandwidth available, I'd be interested to find out if that alleviated it at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I'll tell you, we've been at these conferences that I've seen you at, Scott, where I'll sit there and I'll have to show something and I'll click on play, and because everybody else in the room is on the same network, I'll sit there and wait sometimes 20 seconds for it to finally read aloud. And that's just if it's a slower network or everybody is trying to do, either bringing voice over or in some cases videos over, or whatever they're using at the time, that definitely can have an effect.
I have a question again.
Sure.
With the speed, is it you always have to go to that settings? Is there like another way? Is there a shortcut key? Like I noticed if I wanted to increase the speed, I'd have to press that setting button. Is there a like a dial instead in the future? Or?
Yeah, what I would expect is going to come eventually is going to be the ability to have some keystroke combinations that will change the speed. And I can look back again to our desktop version. About 4 years ago, that question was coming up, and so we made it so as you were having read aloud happen, you could use the arrow keys on your keyboard. And so if you wanted it to be louder, you could just click the up arrow key, and it would make it louder. What we have to be careful with keystroke combinations. So instead of having to go up there and switch it up here, you're saying if there's an easier way to do it. Keystroke combinations are a little tricky because we basically have to design for a Chromebook. We on our desktop, a lot of the F buttons, so F2, F3, we would use those to control certain parts of Read&Write Gold, but Chromebooks don't have F buttons, so we've got to be careful with what we build into the system, that it's going to be available on all the devices we expect this is going to be used on. But that did take place about 4 years ago. That did happen on our PC desktop version, where we made it so that you could way more easily kind of control the volume or the speed with the arrow keys.
So how about like a dial, like something that shows up on the sidebar? Like I noticed like on the
yeah, if you had something up here, we could consider that. The other thing that we're actually that we're taking a little bit of a more cautious approach is how much stuff we put out here. So one of the things people really like about Read&Write for Google as opposed to Read&Write Gold is the simplicity of it. And so in Read&Write Gold, and I can just show you this to give you an example. I'll just pop it up on my screen here. Read&Write Gold has 15 years worth of menus and items in it, where I can go to this menu here next to my speech button, and you can see it's pretty expansive. And then when I go to the speech options, there are a ton here I can go through. And this is really in a response to our customers asking for more flexibility, more options within the program. And Read&Write Gold was primarily used for students that had IPPs or struggling students. But Read&Write for Google is being really adopted by school districts more as a differentiated instruction toolbar. And because of that, we feel that we have to be cautious with how expansive these menus get and how many items we have out there. For us, really, the simpler the better. And that's why we're going to be building in the ability for, let's say, a student doesn't want to have all these up there. He or she just wants 2 or 3 buttons. Down the road, our expectation is you're going to be able to remove some of these that you don't need, same as you can on our desktop version. And something like that might make it easy, but I know that one of the things we're trying to do here is to keep it as simple as possible. But I do like the idea of having a little dial there to be able to control speed, something up here.
I only suggest that because I have that new Windows 8 thing, and there's like a program called Fresh Paint, and I don't know if you've heard about that program.
No.
But it's where you can like paint, and it's almost like you're an artist yourself, and it's got like a brush stroke. It's got like a palette of like all these paints and highlighters and all that, and it just looks really user friendly. And so I thought maybe like that'd be cool if like that was kind of like instead of all these little buttons and icons that you have in your.
Well, we're very interested in user interface for this, so if you had a screenshot that you could send, Scott has my email address. I'd love to get a screenshot of what that looks like.
Okay.
Because it could be something we could definitely look at. I mean, this is, for us, it's kind of fun developing this thing because we can go in a lot of different directions. One of the other tools in the Google Doc toolbar, before I go over to the web pages, is the word prediction. Word prediction has been very, very effective for students that struggle with writing to allow them to take what's in their mind and get it onto the page. So when I bring up the word prediction tool here, what you're seeing is a list of 10 words that it thinks I'm going to want to write. Now, how does it know what I want to write before I've even written anything? And really what we're putting here is, to give you a little background, Google has scanned about 30 million books, and it's called Google Books. So they have a repository of 30 million books that they've scanned, and they allow us to access that API, or basically access those 30 million books. So what we've done, what our word prediction is doing is, as you type, it's accessing those 30 million books to say, what is the most likely word that this person wants to put in? So what you're seeing here, these are the top 10 words that begin sentences in the English language based upon 30 million books that Google has scanned. So before I even write anything, it's giving me the most likely words I probably would want to put in. If I'm going to type the sentence, today I walk to school, notice I put in a T. I'll make this a little larger. I put in a T, and what it's doing now is saying, oh, okay, well, in the English language, based upon 30 million books that have been scanned by Google, every time that a person starts a sentence with a T, these are the 10 most likely words that begin the sentence. And then as I put a TO, and it says, oh, okay, well, then now we're looking at the most likely words that begin with a TO. So you can see what it's doing. It's just going through those books right now and trying to figure out where I'm going, giving me the most likely options for what this word could be to begin a sentence. So when I put today, notice in the English language then, sentences that start with the word today, the next most likely words are listed here. So I've got it here. Now when I put in walk to school, for some reason this is giving me some troubles. Well, that's not good. That's interesting. It worked just fine a little while ago, but what it should be doing is start telling me WAL. It usually comes up the second or third time when I pop it in there. It'll show me the word that I want. So yeah, something hairy is going on with my account right now. But this has been a pretty popular one. I had a school board today that contacted us because they're looking for something that exists on a Chromebook that they can use because I think they were used to using WordQ. One of the other things that I think WordQ offered was the ability to have not just prediction in English, but prediction in French. And Scott, is that anything that the school district has used in the past, word prediction?
Yes, they have, particularly for students with special needs. But I think it could be particularly powerful in French immersion. And we have late immersion programs as well.
Yeah, so I can show you really quickly here. We have a beta version right now. We are building, and we're almost done building, a French version of Read and Write for Google. So your French students will be able to go in, and you can see here I can control the language. And so I've now controlled this. And this is only about, I'm guessing, about a month, hopefully a month or two away, when this will be part of all Read and Write for Google. So any of your students during this pilot, there's a good chance between now and the end of the year that we'll announce that now French is available, and those students can just go and change it from English to French, and then as they start to type in here, you're going to have a prediction that is basically predicting in French.
Formidable.
What's that?
Formidable.
So that'll be good. And had many schools in Canada, obviously, with a lot of French-speaking students that are looking for this. And those word prediction programs they were used to, this is what they've been looking for, something to replace it on Chromebook. So we've got that. The other tool to notice in here is we have a speech input tool. So when I click on speech input, it's going to listen to what I'm saying. So I'm going to try saying the same sentence and see if it picks it up. Today I walked to school. So notice there it just typed it in. The speech input, very similar to what students are probably using on their cell phones when they're talking or speaking their texts in their text messages. So this is being adopted in a lot of school boards and school divisions, as I said, as a differentiated instruction tool, but the students are so used to having the ability to speak what they want to have typed and have it type out. This has been great, not just for students who really require to have something like Dragon, Naturally Speaking, or a dictation tool, but just students as a productivity tool that they're kind of used to having on their handheld devices. So we've gotten a lot of great feedback from students and schools on that as well. Now the last tool to show you before I jump over to the web page is, if I don't know what a word like school is or walked is or today is, we have a button here. I've gotten some oohs and ahs from this in the past. You know, for me, it doesn't take much for me to open up a new tab and look up the word school in Google, but this fact finder, what it's going to do is it's going to take the word I've highlighted and automatically open up a new tab and look for that word I've got highlighted. I think I've got two different documents open here. So it's going to open that up and do a quick search on it. I got to make sure I've only got the one word. So I can click on this and let's see. There we go. So it'll look up the word today and go there. So it can be helpful for students with executive functioning that want to learn more about a word that they have in the document. So before I transfer out, and I'm going to show you the rest of these tools, but they're better to show on, I believe, in a web page. Scott, any questions more about the Google Docs toolbar?
Yeah, try typing in the word mercurial. Let's see if that one, what that one does. Mercurial.
Mercurial, like that? You mean with the word prediction?
That's exactly it, mercurial, yeah. He was a mercurial leader.
So the other interesting thing is when you hover over a word in word prediction, you can hear it read aloud.
Mercurial.
But the other thing that we've done is we made it possible that you can have the dictionary open at the same time you have your word prediction. So now when I'm typing in here and I've got mercurial, she'll say it, but I can also go over here and have the definition read aloud.
Relating to or containing or caused by mercury, mercurial preparations, mercurial sore mouth.
Is that right?
Yeah, and can you show me what it does in French and also the picture dictionary for that word mercurial?
It may not have it. And the reason, Scott, is that, you know, the widgets company, they just haven't gotten around to putting the word mercurial into their book of images there.
They need a picture of Gaddafi, but anyways, that's another story.
Well,
and can you translate that into French? See, is that word there?
This one?
Yeah.
And so if I turn off the prediction and I go here and I do my translate.
Mercurial.
Great. Thanks so much. It's great.
Is that good?
It's good.
It's a new word for me, Scott. All right. Now, as I go to this web page, these last 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 or so buttons, they're the same ones that are on the web page, but I'd like to show them on a web page more for a couple reasons. So let me jump to a web page. Here is a web page that has a lot of text and it does have some visuals and everything else. Maybe a typical type of web page students might come across to do some research or something like that. Here, if you wanted to bring in a read and write toolbar, you can click on this little icon up here, this little green one, and you're going to see the toolbar pop in there. So it's kind of a floating version of the toolbar here. Scott, have you had any students that have used this or gotten any feedback on this for web pages?
Yeah, Anne, go ahead.
We haven't used the highlighters. For my students, I teach a special ed class, so for some of them we just highlight and have it read it to them. It's actually been a nice feature that we didn't have in the free read that we were using. Yeah, so far so good. I can't remember, this might be one of the ones where we had to reload it a couple times, but other than that, yeah, it's been good.
Is anyone, go ahead.
If I could just comment just back to your toolbar in Google Docs, I like how it's very refined and there's not a lot of choice. Having done the Read&Write for Gold training myself, and that is very overwhelming to the point where you're sort of like, I can't. So this is sort of nice just having it, and again, an elementary school perspective, high school difference, but it's nice just having it simplified.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's for us, because we're more going for the entire student population with this now. It's essential that we make it easier and we look at it in a different way. The other thing you notice here that Google makes it possible is what we call discoverability. So to be able to have a little tab here that just hangs in the environment, we could never do something like that in Microsoft Word or on it's just harder to do something like that on a desktop. So the reason this has taken off and is very easy for students to adopt, besides the fact that it's simple with not too many tools, is the fact that it's very evident and you can find it there quite easily. And so that's what has really upped our usage. Interestingly, as important as all these tools are for writing and reading inside of a Google Doc, when you go to web pages, our analytics tell us that the web page, this tool is used, the text-to-speech here is used far more than the one in Google Docs. Obviously, as you said, when you've got students who are doing research, they need to have this information read aloud because oftentimes students will come across content that is above their reading level. So when you can employ that text-to-speech, now I can either grab some of the text here and then click on play.
The unique geography of the Arctic leads to...
And it reads nicely just from the web page there. Or the other thing I can do is I can click on this hover speech, and now anything on the web page that's HTML, so kind of typical print type here that I hover over, it's going to just read aloud without me clicking.
The unique geography of the Arctic leads to unique weather patterns that reappear in the region year after.
And why that's important is on the left-hand side here, you'll see that there's some hyperlinks. Well, if there's some students that are trying to highlight those hyperlinks to hear what they are, oftentimes they're going to accidentally click on them and go to a new web page, and it's frustrating. So now they can just hover over this hyperlink and hear it read aloud.
Introduction. What is the Arctic? Arctic phenomena. Arctic weather and climate.
So it makes it very easy there to have that read aloud. And again, you think back to the fact that if there's a struggling student who's reading below grade level, there's a good chance that that comprehension for that student is going to be bumped up when text-to-speech with dual highlighting is used there. So that's very, very popular. I believe that that's the #1 tool, the text-to-speech on web pages that we find of our 1.5 million users that's being used. You can also use here those dictionary tools I showed you. So I've got the talking dictionary and I've got the picture dictionary as well. So I can use those while I'm on the web page, which is great to have those references on the web page. I can do that web search again with the fact finder to open up a new Google search on a word I've highlighted, and I can also translate again into Spanish or French if I want and hear that read aloud. But the tools that are left here on the right, these are some fantastic tools for studying, and I'll give you kind of a quick view of a couple different ways you can use these. The first is going to be, let's say I'm a student who is going to be doing some research, and I'm going to do it on climatology and weather, and anything that I find that's important on weather patterns, I'm just going to highlight blue. So I highlight it and then I click the color that I want it to be colored, and I'm going to designate cyclones as fuchsia here. So anything I think is important, I'm just going to highlight there in fuchsia, and over here maybe that's going to be blue as well. And then anything that has to do with polar lows is going to be yellow. And oh, look here, I've got something here that's also could be blue, and this here could be yellow. And then down here, my highs and lows is going to be green. So all I'm doing here basically is just color coding the information based upon what it means to me and what these colors are going to represent. So here's a fuchsia. Now, the great thing here is when I'm done with my page, I've got it kind of marked up and highlighted with what I think is important, and it's designated by color. I click on this little pinwheel to collect highlights. What this does then, it's going to take all 4 colors that I have there, and it's going to open up a new Google Doc that it's automatically saving in my Drive account, and it's organizing it by color. So all my yellows, no matter where they were on the page, now have come together. All my blues have come together. All my greens have come together, and all my fuchsia have come together. And it gives me a link back to where I got this information in case I have to cite my data. So any feedback on that? Does that look like a helpful tool?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, this has been remarkable. I believe a couple months ago, my understanding from our developers was that is the second most used tool on the entire program, and it just tells us, yeah, word prediction and those tools are great for students that struggle and need them, but what the majority of students need is help with research and organization and understanding what they're encountering when they're doing this research. So Read and Write for Google is really becoming a fantastic research tool because of these types of tools. What's nice about it is it created this, again, it created me a Google Doc. I can use the Read and Write for Google tools in it, but it's already saved this in my Google Drive. So I can go back there, share it out if I want to. So everything is still remaining and staying in this Google environment. Now, if I clear everything, there's another way that I can use these highlighters. Let's say I have a student who is unfamiliar with this, and I tell the student, I want you to do to highlight any of the words here that you are not familiar with. So kind of like a pre-reading activity. So here I've highlighted 4 words. It doesn't matter what color I use, but once I have single words highlighted on the page, I can click on this vocabulary lookup button. What this is going to do, it's going to also create a Google Doc and store it in my Google Drive. But what it's doing and what it's going to do is it's going to define the word if we have that in our dictionary, and it's going to give a symbol for the word here and put it in kind of a graph chart so that students can basically make their own study guide for this. And I'm not sure why it's not finding patterns because it normally finds that. That's a little bit odd. All these words it normally finds. I don't know what is going on with my account right now, but in an ideal situation, all the definitions are there. You've got symbols there, and I think the most important thing here is students can then use higher level thinking to come up with their own versions of what weather might mean to them. Or we've got I know someone there mentioned that you were using Google Translate. You could grab the definition here and do a quick Google Translate and then put it here in the notes so you've got what the English definition is and then what your own definition is in your own language. And then you have a symbol here that kind of bind the two together. So a lot of different ways you can use this document. And then if I go back to my web page, the last tool to show you here is, let me just get rid of some of these highlights. This page has a lot of visuals, which can be kind of confusing or distracting for certain types of students. So if you wanted to just have the text there for students, you can use the Simplify Page button. And what Simplify Page is going to do is it's going to take all the text from that page but put it into a new web page without all of the images. So it's going to be easier for students who need to concentrate on just that page or just the text on that page without all the images right there. And then because it's a web page in my Chrome browser, I can use Read and Write for Google's tools right there. So kind of simplified things and got rid of some of the clutter for students that just need to actually have the content. Any questions about this tool?
Yeah, I'm just curious, in terms of age groups, which age groups or grades would you say are accessing this program the most?
You mean the entire suite?
Yeah.
It is across the board. It really kind of depends on the district, but the beautiful thing that we know about this, Scott, is when school boards pilot this, very different from Read and Write Gold, the desktop, where you had to open it up as a secondary program, the usage on this is just through the roof, and it really kind of depends on students that get access to it. As you and I know, oftentimes, unfortunately, the biggest barrier for technology for students is the teachers just not being comfortable with it. And something like this, students are picking this up very easily. So it's really just a matter of getting it into the students' hands. They figure out how to use a lot of these tools on their own. We have a YouTube page that has some videos made that show students how to do it, but oftentimes the feedback we get is once you give it to a group of students, they kind of figure it out. They teach each other, and there's so many helpful tools, productivity tools. There's really no stigma here of this just being like a special ed type toolbar. This is useful on so many different levels for different types of students. So this is it's really hard to say which group is using it most because any group that gets hold of it, if they have access to computers or Chromebooks, it's on.
It's ironic that you point out that the greatest barrier to learning is the teacher.
Well, learning technology, yes. And because of that, I think I mentioned to you, the text-to-speech here is actually free on web pages. Anybody can download this Read and Write for Google program, and after 30 days, all these buttons are going to go gray. They can't use them, but they can use the text-to-speech on web pages as well as in Google Docs. So that's been a way for us to get students just to be able to use text-to-speech, our most valuable tool, for free. But we've also made this premium version, so all these tools, any teacher can register as a teacher and get access to all these tools for free. So 10 months ago, we looked at that and said, that is a problem. This is such a great tool for students, but teachers, if they don't have access to it and have time to play with it and understand it and know how they'd use it in classrooms, they're not bound to go to their principals and say, we need this tool. So we made it free for teachers. So teachers can get the entire program for free, and that, I can tell you, has been just a really good marketing move for us, because some teachers will get it, play with it for a couple months, and then they're comfortable with it, and then they go back to their district offices, their leaders, and say, we've been using this as a teaching group. We've tested it with some students. It works really well. We understand it. We want to move forward with it. And that has allowed a lot of school districts to come on board that definitely wouldn't have.
Right, and in our district, it's the principal who has to make that decision. So teachers would lobby the principal.
Exactly, and that's what's happening in a lot of places in Canada. You're exactly right. So, any questions on this web toolbar that can read and do all the comprehension tools and the research and study?
Hey, Paul, does the iPad have as many features as Chrome?
No. Is this Cam?
Yes.
Cam, it doesn't. In fact, I can show you. I've got a couple screenshots I can show you of the iPad when we're done with this. Because are you in? Is your school a lower or a younger school?
Yeah, we're in elementary school, and we use primarily iPad minis, and we also have Macs as desktop computers, but we're primarily moving towards iPad minis.
So I'll show you what's available in a few minutes on the iPad itself. We're going to be building more of these types of tools in. We're limited, Cam, by the fact that Apple and Google aren't really good friends.
Right.
So, as Scott or anybody else that does a lot of this technology stuff can tell you, these apps and extensions, and this is basically this Google toolbar. This is an extension inside of a Google Doc. Apple does not allow for extensions inside of the Chrome web browser on iPads, and that has really hurt a lot of different initiatives for students, for learning tools, and for apps and extensions there. So we can't go in that way and provide a toolbar like this in the Docs environment, but I will show you what we can do on the iPad because we found a way to sneak in there. So I'll show it to you. As soon as I'm done here with the PDFs, we'll jump to that because I do want you to see that.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. So inside of your Google Drive, when students have files inside of here, and again, this could be PDFs or it could be KES files. When you open up these PDFs here, you'll open them up and you'll see so here's a PDF that I've opened up directly from Google Drive. You'll see the tools here at the top, and these are the same types of tools, the text-to-speech, so I can basically grab this and click anywhere and have it read aloud with the dual highlighting right from the PDF itself.
In this chapter, we describe the composition and functions of this life-sustaining fluid that serves.
So you can see that works very easy. Now this document happens to have been scanned in the correct way, which would be an OCR scan, so we know where the words are, and because of that we can grab them and do something with them. But in some cases, as Scott was alluding to in the beginning, there are students who come across PDFs that are image-based, so there's no way to grab any text because it hasn't been scanned properly. I will address that once we're done looking at this so you can see what can be done about that. But because we now have access to this text, there's a lot we can do with it. In addition to reading it, we have some study tools, those same types of tools that you saw before. If I highlight on a specific word, I have the ability to highlight it a different color, and I can make a vocabulary list, same as I did before. I can look up the word, so if I've got the dictionary here, I can have that read aloud as well.
Noun, rush, spate, surge. Surge a sudden forceful flow.
I also have the picture dictionary here. I can use that, the translator as well. So all the tools here are available inside of a PDF. Scott, when you say that you're having issues with non-OCR scanned PDFs coming in, are these textbooks?
Well, some of them are. Some of them are editable PDFs.
So some are editable, some are not.
Yeah.
Okay. So in here, I could, if I wanted to, do the same thing I did before, and this is great. So if you've got, a textbook where there's a lot of text and you're asking students to do research in that text, imagine being able to use these tools to highlight specific information. Now, this is a pretty long document I've got here. I can go through here and highlight, again, color coding whatever is important to me by different colors. And when I'm done, I go up to the top here, I click on this Collect All Highlights button, and it's going to collect them again. The same way as it did from a web page or it would do from a Google Doc, it's going to highlight these now and collect them into a new Google Doc, save this into my Google Drive, and there you go. So there's directly from the text that I had grabbed, and all the blues come together, all the fuchsia come together. So it's a great way for students to look at that textbook, be able to take notes, and then bring it into one document. And that's been really, really big. So it's an exciting thing. If your students are using textbooks like this, Scott, that's a great, great tool.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the high school you said that was used to using Kurzweil, let's say that this was a test and there were test questions here. There's the ability to type directly into this PDF. So if there was a question here, I could type my answer.
The answer.
And I can just leave that in there. So now this is left there. So when I share it back to my teacher, I can type my answers in there the same way as I would with Kurzweil. So this is what's enabled us, a lot of school districts really out east, to go fully with Read and Write for Google and not use Kurzweil anymore, because they were either having Kurzweil documents read aloud or transcribing in or doing highlighting and extraction. We've covered all those things here. And the last thing to show you here is, if I want, I can leave a pin here. So if maybe I'm a teacher that wants students to do something specific here. Exciting part of the book, or Johnny, you're going to read this paragraph out loud in class tomorrow. So you can leave a lot of different types of notes here. And then that just resides as a little pin, and I can move that pin, so anytime a student sees that, they can hover on it, look at it, and they can see the notes that you put there. And again, that's just going to be saved in your Google Drive, so anybody that you share this with that has access to Read and Write for Google is going to see the annotations, is going to see what you've typed in, is going to see these little pins that you got here. And I can also then, if I want to, just go ahead and print directly from this with all of my annotations and everything else directly on it. Now this would be the exact same way that you'd open up a Kezi file. You could open it up like this and have the Kezi file read aloud. You can use all these highlighting tools directly inside of it. So that high school that has all those legacy Kezi documents, you can just drop those into Google Drive and open them up and you're good to go. Anything else to show here? Any questions, Scott?
Yeah, we got one here.
Was there interest to have it available for offline? So.
Right now the program does not work if you're offline.
Is it compatible, like, I use Read Later. I don't know if you know that app, but it's like I can save that page on the website and then read it offline. And it would be awesome if there was a text-to-speech on that too.
I would think so. It just depends on what format that's in. I mean, if it's accessible text, my guess is it's going to work. But I'd encourage you to have some students or teachers try it out. So we've seen a lot of the program. It's a lot of buttons. It's a lot of stuff that this does. Again, the saving grace here is that it's pretty simple, so students pick up on it fairly easily with whichever area they're in. And once they get it, they get it. They show each other how to use it. That's pretty simple. What I'll do now is I'm going to show you this Snapverter tool that Scott asked me to show you. Here's an example of a PDF document. I'm going to open it up. And when I open it up, you can see here, I can see that there are words here. However, when I go to try and grab the words, I can't, because this is basically just like a picture image. This has not gone through a scan that's recognized letters and numbers and put them together to say, hey, here's some letters, here's a C, here's an O, here's an N. So I cannot grab this text. So this is an inaccessible document. And this is, Scott, you're saying this is an issue where students are coming across these types of documents and they're not able to use Read and Write for Google to read them, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Got it. So essentially what the screenshot, or I should say what the Snapverter is inside of my Google Drive. If you have Snapverter, you'll see that there's a little folder here called Snapverter. What I do here is open it up, and I've got drop files here to convert and then finished. So the drop files here to convert, anything that I drop into this little file, so I'll go ahead and just take this off my desktop. If I take this and drop it in there into my drive, into that file, it's going to load it up. It's been there. Now what TextHelp, what we're doing is every 30 seconds or so, we're scanning this folder because we put it into your account for anything new that's there. And as soon as we find something that's new, we grab it, we pull it onto our server, we scan it with Abby scanning the proper way, so an OCR scan, and you can see right there it just disappeared. So now it disappeared from this one. Right now it's in the in progress folder where it's going to be converted into something that's going to be accessible here in the finished folder. So we scan it on our servers with Abby, a very sophisticated scanning software, and then we drop it here in this finished folder. It normally takes about 2 to 3 minutes for it to go through that process, but I have it here because I've done this a couple times recently. So here's that same file now. When I open it up inside of Read and Write for Google, here is that file then, and you can see I can now have it read aloud.
The term blood substitute is somewhat misleading. Blood has many components and plays such a wide variety of roles.
So I've made it accessible. I can grab the text here now, and I can use all the tools with Read and Write for Google inside of it because I've gone through the Snapverter process. So Scott, is that what you wanted me to show you in terms of how to take an inaccessible PDF and make it accessible?
Yes. I tried to download Snapverter on a teacher's PC computer today, and even though it clearly came down from the extensions, it just did not appear, even though we shut the whole computer down, restarted it twice. Obviously clicked Google Chrome down or turned it off twice before we shut the computer down.
I'm going to contact, as soon as we're done here, Scott, I'm going to contact our tech people and have them turn on Snapverter for the pilot. This is Mike and Kathleen. They're the ones that are in our Boston offices that you can call. So if you have an issue where you're trying to download it, just call them, and I'm going to take this. If you haven't gotten this, I'm going to put this in the dialog box of the GoToMeeting right now, and you can just give them a call, or you can, if you want. Right now they're not there because it's after hours, but normally during the day you'll see, do you want to chat here? So you can chat with them right there and have them look at it, and then you can, if you want, just give them a call, or they can call you. Or they can do a GoToMeeting like we're doing right now and look at your screen and walk you through it. But they'll be able to help you with it. But I'm going to have that turned on, and I'll let you know when it's turned on for everybody.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I'd just like to know if this is a known issue or if this is a one-off.
Yeah, and that's what you want. That's what you want to contact them for, because they can walk you through. And because we're an ISO company, if something comes up, we make records of it, and then we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Sure. Okay. Great.
So the last thing I was going to show you, a couple last things. The Read and Write for iPad and Android. So what basically you'll have with this is when you load it in, you can you'll get a little floating toolbar on web pages. But then the trick here is because we can't make these extensions and apps work the same way on an iPad as we do on a PC, Mac, or Chromebook, we've taken some of these tools, text-to-speech and the dictionaries and that sort of thing, and embedded them in a keyboard. So to give a little closer look here, you can see here is a Google Doc through the Google Docs app on an iPad, and you can use our keyboard to come up, which allows you to use text-to-speech. And you can see here this is our picture dictionary as well as our talking dictionary. It uses our word prediction as well. And you can also use a phonetic spell check there. So it's a lot of the tools from Read and Write, or a few of them I should say right now, that are embedded in the keyboard, and that's how we can get it to access or get it into your Google Docs when you're writing there.
Yeah, this is an important distinction because you have to go into Settings, General, and then actually grab the keyboard, just like you would the emoji keyboard. You're grabbing the Read and Write for Google keyboard.
That's correct. Let me see if I can really quick just bring up, I wasn't preparing for this, but I could do something really quick here to show you what this looks like. Oh, maybe I don't have it here, unfortunately. It's not in the place I want it to be, but I've got a slide deck, Scott, that'll basically walk you through how to do that, what that looks like. But basically, you're right. You have to go in, load it up, and then you have to go and add the keyboard to your iPad, and then choose that keyboard. But once you've got it set, you can toggle back and forth between the regular iPad keyboard and your emoji, as well as the Read and Write keyboard. So that's something more. If you want more help with that, I can definitely help anybody out there. A couple other pieces just to show. One of the things that teachers ask often is, okay, well, we've got all these tools. Where and how can we use them? So I think, Scott, have I sent this to you, this particular PDF?
I think you have, yes.
I'll send it again to make sure you've got it, because what this does is it looks at the standard writing process and then what you do in that process. So here in this case, pre-writing, well, when you're pre-writing, you're brainstorming, gathering details, doing research. Here are all the tools on Read and Write for Google that can help with that particular activity. So in a perfect world, you've got a 6th grade class that's going to be doing some sort of writing, this week's, a compare and contrast essay. And on Monday, you're going to do the pre-writing. Well, on Monday, you want to start exploring some of these tools or maybe offer some of these tools or suggest them to students. On Tuesday, you're going to be doing your drafting, so you might want to use word prediction, speech input, or a typewriter tool, so on and so forth. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you've got tools you can use in Read and Write for Google each day in that writing process. And this is a way to kind of figure out the best tools at the right time during the writing process.
Yeah, now that I've seen this a little bit more closely, I don't think I do have this. So yeah, do send it my way.
Yeah, because this can help a lot of the teachers with where to use these tools particularly. And then some of the future development that we have, a phonetic spell check is on the way, the ability to highlight text, click a button, and make an MP3 audiobook out of it. The OCR scan, which is going to work, I think, on web pages where you can come across inaccessible content, click a button, pull a box around it, and it's going to do a scan on that and read it. That's a little farther away, but that's something that we're currently working on. Voice notes, which is the ability to just click a button inside of a Google Doc, speak your answer, and it's going to save your answer as a sound file as opposed to having to use dictation or type it out yourself. More of the tools from the Google Docs and the Chrome web browser toolbar are going to be added to PDF, and then the French interface, as I mentioned as well. So these are just some things to know that we're working on, and we're constantly adding more functionality to Read and Write for Google in cautious ways, and we're also going to be adding more user interface adaptations as time goes on, where we're going to be saving the settings in the cloud. So when you change something on one device when you're using Read and Write for Google, it's going to save it, and you'll see it across other devices. So between the Read and Write for Google, the Read and Write for iPad, the Read and Write for Android devices, there's going to be some cohesion over time for student settings, that sort of thing. So it's pretty exciting. These are all things that we're working on in our development right now. Any feedback or any questions that we haven't covered today?
Can I just ask, just to clarify?
Sure.
The toolbar in SnapBurner looks different than the toolbar that we're using in Read and Write, correct?
Yeah, and in fact, you kind of hit this last bullet point right here. So when we made the PDF reader, which is the one that has kind of like, it's got purple buttons, right? When we made that in a design based upon the fact that 2 years ago we were more of kind of a Microsoft company, and when you're a certified gold partner with Microsoft, what you develop for Microsoft has to kind of coincide with what their current logos and icons look like. So if you look at those green little squares of buttons on the PDF reader, we were designing those originally, I believe, for the desktop, which was going to be part of Microsoft, and then we actually embedded it into Read and Write for Google. So it's that we have to address and make them look the same as are on the the Google Docs and the Chrome web browser, and that's one of the buttons here is to make sure that all the buttons look the same from device to device and from platform to platform.
And then I just have one more question. Thank you for that last answer. Can you provide a copy of these notes? Any chance?
Provide a copy of this PowerPoint?
Just for us, for some of us who are taking this information back to share with our staff, it would be kind of helpful to have something like this, considering we're trying to sell them on this program.
Sure. You want me just to I can email this PowerPoint to Scott. Would that work?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to also give him a copy of this recording. Hopefully it works out. Usually it does. But then if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me. Scott has my information, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions or help anybody through it. I'll look into some of these technical things we talked about. I'll be sending a few things over to Scott, and I'm also going to make sure that Snapverter is enabled for the pilot. And Scott, if you wanted to at some point, give me a call. We can talk a little more about, Snapverter. I showed you one way you could pull a file in, but you can also use your smartphone, if you have the Google Drive app, to just take a picture of something right in front of you and have it automatically saved in a Snapverter, and 2 minutes later it's scanned in your file.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I've actually tried that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It works really well. So I usually do that in a face-to-face demonstration, so it's kind of good. So any other questions before we end?
What was the problem with Kathy's computer? Why wouldn't that go on? I think the Chrome wasn't, properly effectively signed in her account. Therefore, it had the plugin, but the plugin and then the permissions to her account, I don't think were all kind of synced up. So once we have her sign in, then the plugin then asks for permissions again. Once you get the permissions, then it all works. So there's a loop there that has to kind of be.
Actually, I have a teacher at my school the same problem.
Yeah, it would be nice to have sort of written instructions how to redo this if the plugins aren't.
You just need to make sure that you're signed in.
You need to make sure you're signed into Chrome with your account. Chrome, not it.
Even that, how do you make sure that you're actually signed into Chrome? And so that's.
And then accepted the permissions as well. Some